Maria stepped out of her small apartment and into the hustle and bustle of the city streets, her heart filled with determination. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the buildings, but Maria felt the weight of the day on her shoulders. She had finished a long shift at the local diner, where she worked hard to support herself after moving from her hometown. With each step, she reminded herself of her strength. She wasn't just walking home. She was reclaiming her freedom as she walked. She listened to the sounds around her. Laughter from children playing in a nearby park, the distant honking of cars, and the chatter of people going about their lives. Maria loved this part of the city. It was vibrant, full of life, and yet sometimes it felt like danger lurked around every corner. She had learned to be cautious but never let fear control her. Just down the street, Carlos leaned against a lamppost, his demeanor oozing menace. He was well known among those who lived in the neighborhood for his unpredictable temper and ties to a notorious cartel. His dark clothes blended into shadows, making him look even more threatening as he watched passers-by with narrowed eyes. He was not here by chance. He thrived on intimidation and chaos. As Maria approached, Carlos straightened up and let out a low whistle that echoed through the street. Maria felt a knot tighten in her stomach but kept walking, refusing to show any hint of fear. She focused on her breathing, reminding herself that she had every right to be there as much as anyone else. "Hey there," Carlos called out, his voice dripping with arrogance as he stepped closer to block her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Maria's heart raced. She could feel his eyes boring into her as he invaded her personal space. Despite every instinct urging her to back away, she stood tall and met his gaze directly. "I'm just walking home," she replied firmly. Carlos smirked, taking another step toward her. "You know it's dangerous out here for someone like you." His words were laced with threat, but Maria refused to back down. "You don't scare me," she said defiantly. Inside, though, anxiety fluttered like butterflies in her stomach. She remembered countless stories of women who had faced harassment and how many had felt powerless in similar situations. Unbeknownst to them both, Officer Jenkins watched from just beyond the crowd, hidden behind a nearby shop's signboard. He had been assigned to patrol this area due to rising reports of gang activity and harassment. His instincts kicked in as he observed Carlos approaching Maria aggressively. He could tell trouble was brewing. Jenkins admired Maria's strength and resilience from afar, while also feeling a rush of protectiveness wash over him. He knew that intervention might be necessary soon, if Carlos didn't back off. As tension filled the air between Maria and Carlos, Jenkins took a deep breath and prepared himself for action if things escalated further. He wasn't going to allow this woman's courage to go unnoticed or unprotected. The streets buzzed with life around them. People continued walking by with their own lives and stories, but in that moment, it was just Maria standing strong against menacing forces lurking in the shadows, ready for confrontation. The busy street was alive with energy, a tapestry of sounds and sights that painted the urban landscape. Vendors shouted out their daily specials, their voices competing with the clang of bicycle bells and the distant roar of traffic. Children dashed by, giggling as they played tag amidst the laughter of families enjoying the warm evening air. Maria moved through this lively scene, her steps purposeful, yet aware of the underlying tensions that simmered just beneath the surface. Bright neon signs flickered overhead, casting colorful reflections on the asphalt as people bustled from one place to another. The smell of street food wafted through the air. Tacos sizzling on grills, sweet churros frying in hot oil, drawing patrons to various stalls nestled along the sidewalk. Maria felt a sense of community here, where strangers shared smiles and exchanged pleasantries. But amid this lively atmosphere, there was an unsettling awareness that danger could strike at any moment. On one corner stood a group of teenagers laughing and chatting, their carefree demeanor contrasting sharply with shadows lurking just a few feet away. A street artist had set up his easel nearby, skillfully painting a mural that depicted vibrant city life while, unaware that not all stories unfolding in this space were peaceful. Carlos lingered in his dark clothes just off to the side, blending seamlessly into the chaotic background yet exuding an aura of menace that sent shivers down many spines. As Maria walked closer to where Carlos leaned against the lamppost, she couldn't shake off the feeling that eyes were following her every move, watching not with curiosity but with intent. A chill crept up her spine as she caught sight of him. His posture was relaxed, almost casual. But there was nothing easy about the way he surveyed those passing by. It was as if he relished in the discomfort he caused others. The sun continued its descent, casting long shadows across the pavement and illuminating flickers of anxiety etched on some faces. Nearby couples held hands tightly as they walked past Carlos, quickening their pace as if sensing danger instinctively. Street performers entertained crowds with music and tricks, but even their joyful energy felt slightly dimmed in the presence of someone like him. Officer Jenkins remained hidden around the corner, his trained eye surveying everything, one moment watching vendors interact with customers and another studying Carlos closely. There were moments when pedestrians laughed or chatted animatedly without a care in the world. However, Jenkins recognized that these distractions masked deeper fears lingering beneath the surface. He noted how people subtly altered their path upon noticing Carlos's presence, crossing to another side of the street or picking up their pace, as if they instinctively understood what he represented: unpredictability and peril. The officer felt determined to ensure Maria would be safe during this tense encounter in this vibrant but dangerous atmosphere filled with laughter and light juxtaposed against lurking shadows. Maria continued on her path toward home. The city's pulse beat around her, a rhythm both comforting and foreboding, as she embraced her independence while remaining acutely aware of every sound and movement surrounding her. Little did she know how critical those moments would soon prove to be as danger edged closer, with each passing second on that bustling street. Maria's daily routine began early each morning, the sound of her alarm ringing in her ears as the sun rose over the horizon. Living in a small apartment meant she had to make every moment count, and she cherished the time she had before rushing off to work. After a quick shower, she would prepare a simple breakfast of scrambled eggs with toast, accompanied by a hot cup of coffee that prepared her for the day ahead. The aroma filled her small kitchen, a comforting start to long hours. Leaving home, Maria would strap on her sturdy shoes that carried her through miles of concrete and chaos as she stepped outside. She often brushed her hair back from her face, setting her mind on the tasks waiting for her at work. Each day, she walked several blocks to the diner where she worked, a place bustling with locals who admired her friendly smile and quick service. To Maria, that diner was more than just a paycheck. It represented her independence, a place where she could be herself and connect with others. In the community, throughout her shifts, Maria displayed an admirable resilience. Whether it was juggling orders or dealing with difficult customers, she managed to keep her composure. She laughed with coworkers during busy hours and shared stories with regulars, their conversations brightening both their days, although some days were exhausting. Especially when the diner overflowed with customers, Maria pushed through because it was part of what made her strong. She knew how to carry herself even under pressure. After work, as marquee lights flashed around her, each evening brought additional tasks. Whether it was picking up groceries or meeting friends for a game night, Maria seamlessly transitioned from one role to another. She often took pride in managing everything on her own. Her meals were homemade, the apartment tidy, and bills always paid on time. It was life's small victories that made each day worthwhile. Evenings served as downtime when Maria could unwind after long hours on her feet. She loved to curl up on her modest couch with a good book or catch up on her favorite television shows. It was during these quiet moments that she reflected on how far she'd come since moving to the city. Independence was not just about living alone but making choices that shaped who she wanted to be. As Maria interacted with friends or neighbors under twinkling string lights in the courtyard of her building, the sense of belonging wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Community was crucial, not just for support during tough times but also for celebrating joyful moments together, creating memories that encouraged kinship amidst the ups and downs of life. Yet deep down, Maria understood that living alone in this vibrant yet unpredictable city also brought challenges. She often felt a heightened sense of caution during late-night walks home through unfamiliar alleys or parking lots dimly lit by flickering lights. The awareness kept her sharp. She kept an ear out for unsettling noises and eyed nearby shadows more closely than others did. That night, as Maria walked home from work after a particularly busy shift, those instincts kicked in when she spotted Carlos lurking against the lamppost. To this point, unaware of how capable she truly was, but determined. Resolve shone through, amid the laughter and chatter surrounding her. Despite the dangers, she walked confidently forward toward home, knowing she could face whatever came next. As Maria continued her walk, Carlos's gaze was fixed on her, an unsettling smirk creeping across his lips. He had been leaning against the lamppost, blending in with the shadows, but now he pushed himself off it as if sensing fresh prey. The energy of the bustling street faded into the background for him. All he could see was the woman who dared to walk alone at night, unaware of the danger that loomed nearby. Carlos had a reputation for being bold and reckless, known to those in his circle as someone who thrived on fear and intimidation. It was easy for him to spot targets he deemed vulnerable. His dark eyes glinted with malice as he assessed Maria's confident stride. He interpreted her self-assuredness not as strength, but rather as an opportunity for control to him. Powerful women like Maria were a challenge waiting to be conquered. He took a few steps closer, adjusting his posture to radiate dominance while keeping his expression casual. He wanted Maria to notice him, to feel that sense of dread creeping in, to understand that she should be afraid. "Hey there!" he called out. His voice smooth but filled with a threatening edge. It wasn't just an introduction. It was a declaration of his presence. Watching from the corner where he had stationed himself, Jenkins could feel tension building in the air. Carlos's demeanor shifted as he spotted Maria approaching. It was clear that this interaction was about more than mere conversation for him. Jenkins tightened his grip on the radio clipped to his side. Feeling a protective instinct awaken inside him, Carlos took another step toward Maria, invading her space deliberately. "You shouldn't be out here all alone at this hour," he said with feigned concern disguised as menacing charm. His intention wasn't to offer real help but rather to assert control over her. Game of power where he aimed to instill fear while testing her boundaries. Maria felt a knot tighten in her stomach once again but took a deep breath, reminding herself that she had dealt with uneasy situations before. Although Carlos intended to intimidate her with his presence, she refused to let fear dictate her reaction. She stood tall and met his gaze directly. Carlos relished the thrill of watching Maria's reaction. There was delight in seeing how unyielding she appeared despite his attempts at intimidation. But this only fueled his aggression further. The thrill of dominance became intoxicating for him. "What's a pretty girl like you doing out here by yourself? You know people can be dangerous," he mocked, stepping even closer in an attempt to corner her both physically and psychologically. Menace crackled between them like electricity. Whatever air had filled the street moments prior felt stifled now under the weight of confrontation. Nearby pedestrians were oblivious to what was unfolding. Laughter continued unabated around them while Carlos focused solely on Maria and making her unsettled. Jenkins watched intently from behind cover, understanding that it wouldn't be long before Carlos attempted something more aggressive if left unchecked. The officer knew all too well how predators operated in urban environments. Control was key for them. Shattering confidence could quickly spiral into something far more dangerous. Maria's heartbeat quickened as she considered how best to respond without showing weakness or yielding ground against Carlos's intimidation tactics unfolding before their eyes on that bustling street illuminated by neon lights and flickering shadows. Her resilience ignited further by each taunting word hurled toward her. Little did either of them know, though, that help lingered just beyond their exchange. Courage, both silent and steadfast, awaited its moment to emerge when needed most amid this impending storm on the city streets. As Maria continued on her path, the world around her began to fade into a dull hum, each step toward home feeling heavier as she sensed Carlos closing the distance between them. The air was thick with tension, and without warning, he stepped out from the shadows of the lamppost, blocking her way. The bustling street seemed to dissipate into a lonely backdrop where only they existed. "Where do you think you're going?" Carlos asked, his voice low and taunting that it dripped with an edge that immediately sent chills down Maria's spine. He stood tall, towering over her with an imposing presence that demanded attention and respect, though it was clear he aimed to inspire fear instead. Maria took a breath, steadying herself as she met his gaze. "I'm just walking home," she replied, trying to sound confident even as her heart raced. She refused to let him see how unsettled she felt. She could feel the weight of his eyes on her, analyzing her every reaction with eager anticipation. A smirk curled on Carlos's lips as he stepped forward, invading her personal space intentionally. "You shouldn't be out here all alone at this hour," he remarked with a feigned tone of concern that only amplified the menace lurking beneath his words. He leaned in closer, his body language exuding dominance while leaving no doubt about his intentions. As he continued his tightrope walk between charm and danger, Maria's senses heightened. She noticed the way his fists clenched slightly at his sides and how he shifted his weight purposefully to assert control over the situation. To him, this encounter was a game, a test of wills where he aimed to unravel her confidence and exert power over her. "What's wrong?" Carlos continued mockingly. "Do I make you nervous?" His eyes sparkled with disdain as if enjoying every moment of her discomfort. The laughter and chatter of nearby pedestrians faded into background noise. All Maria could hear was the rapid beat of her heart echoing in her ears. She could sense that Carlos thrived on intimidation, relishing in the discomfort he caused others, but Maria was not willing to let him see that his tactics were working. With newfound determination, she straightened her posture and looked him directly in the eye. "I don't need your concern," she replied firmly, pushing back against the wave of anxiety threatening to unseat her bravery. Carlos paused for a moment, taken aback by her defiance. It wasn't what he expected from someone he perceived as a target. For a fleeting second, confusion flickered across his face before he masked it with arrogance once more. "You really think you can walk through this city without someone looking out for you? People like me can make your life very difficult," he replied, stepping even closer as if trying to corner her both physically and psychologically. Maria felt anger bubbling inside her. This man did not own the streets or any part of her life, yet she felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins, a mix of fear and defiance that empowered her refusal to back down. Just then, Jenkins watched carefully from his hidden vantage point nearby, sensing that the situation was escalating. He could see both Maria's resolve and Carlos's aggression manifest in their body language. Something had to give soon. The crowd around them continued their activities obliviously, completely unaware of the critical tension unfolding within their midst. A tug-of-war for power on display right there on those lively streets where intimidation fought against resilience under flickering streetlights. In that moment, Maria stood at a precipice swirling with fear yet daring enough to push back against malevolence, her will strong amidst chaos, ready to redefine who owned that space. Beneath those fading street lamps illuminating their confrontation ahead, the tension between Maria and Carlos hung in the air like a thick fog, but instead of retreating, Maria felt a surge of defiance blossom within her. She had faced challenges before, and she knew that this was another test of her strength. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself and pushed back against the wave of anxiety threatening to overwhelm her. "Look, I don't need your help," Maria said, her voice steady despite the quivering in her chest. Each word was deliberately chosen, meant to convey both confidence and resolve. As she locked eyes with Carlos, she could see the flicker of surprise cross his features. He was clearly not expecting her to fight back. Carlos stepped closer, narrowing the gap between them as he leaned in nearer. "You really think you can just ignore me? People like you shouldn't be out here alone." His tone dripped with intimidation as he tried to loom over her, hoping to instill fear through sheer presence. Maria raised her chin slightly, refusing to let his size or menacing demeanor shake her resolve. "I said I'm walking home," she reiterated firmly, allowing her own strength to shine through. It was crucial that he understood she wouldn't give in easily. Within her mind raced thoughts of all the women who had felt powerless when faced with a similar situation. Stories shared among friends, during quiet evenings at home, or whispered anxieties during work breaks. She remembered how important it was for every one of them to stand up against fear. This was her moment too. She wouldn't allow Carlos to dictate where she could or could not go. A hush fell over their immediate surroundings as nearby pedestrians unconsciously sensed the heated confrontation brewing between them. Laughter faded into whispers as they moved past without looking back. They were unaware of both Maria's bravery and Carlos's wicked intentions. Feeling an adrenaline rush course through her veins, Maria steeled herself further, a fire igniting within that pushed away any remnants of uncertainty. "People like you don't scare me," she stated boldly while maintaining eye contact with him. There were no tremors in her voice now, only clarity accompanied by strength. Carlos stepped back slightly in disbelief, more unsettled than he'd like to admit by how unyielding Maria remained despite his threats. He expected tears or submission. Instead, he confronted an unwavering spirit that challenged him head-on. a woman who refused to play into his hands and demonstrate vulnerability. And witnessing this exchange from his hidden vantage point, Jenkins could feel a sense of urgency rising inside him. A need not just to act but also protect someone so resolute in asserting their rights against intimidation on those streets. The officer recognized he needed to wait for the right moment. An opening would present itself soon if Carlos decided not to retreat. "You'll regret those words," Carlos sneered, trying once more to instill doubt as desperation crept into his voice. His carefully composed facade cracking from this unexpected resistance while he attempted intimidation tactics that didn't seem effective anymore, with renewed courage fueling every word spoken between them under flickering streetlights dimming around them amid urban chaos fading into silence broken only by exchanged hostility. Maria stood firm as confident barriers built earlier repelled aggression hurled toward her. A test-turned triumph unfolding under those starlit skies. No longer merely walking home mindlessly. Now an embodiment of lonely strength battling darkness, determinately lighting up paths forward, defying shadows looming invisibly across vibrant city streets. From his hidden position behind a row of colorful food stalls, Officer Jenkins had a clear view of the unfolding confrontation. He was dressed in plain clothes, a strategy intended to blend in with the crowd while remaining vigilant. As he patrolled the area, the unmistakable tension between Maria and Carlos was palpable, and Jenkins felt a tight knot of concern form in the pit of his stomach as he observed. He had been assigned to this neighborhood due to recent spikes in harassment incidents. A troubling trend that didn't sit well with him as an ICE officer. It wasn't just about enforcing immigration laws. It was also about ensuring safety for those who felt vulnerable. He believed people deserved to walk freely without fear of intimidation or violence, especially women like Maria who were simply living their lives. Jenkins focused intently on Carlos, noting the cartel member's aggressive posture as he leaned in toward Maria. It was clear that Carlos thrived on asserting his dominance, relishing in the discomfort he created for others. The officer could see how Carlos's mere presence affected Maria, how she stood tall yet visibly tensed against the weight of intimidation pressing down upon her. Despite the rising tension, there was something courageous about Maria's defiance that struck Jenkins deeply. He admired her resilience and strength, qualities that many people underestimated when faced with threats. It reminded him of countless stories he had heard from victims who didn't know they had the right to stand up for themselves. There was a fire within her that ignited determination, and Jenkins felt compelled to protect that flame as Carlos continued his taunts. Jenkins sensed that things could escalate quickly if he didn't act soon. He discreetly scanned the surrounding area, searching for any potential allies or witnesses who might lend support if needed. People continued going about their business, oblivious to the confrontation brewing nearby. Laughter and chatter floated through the evening air, contrasting sharply with the intensity between Maria and Carlos. Through careful observation, Jenkins noted how close Carlos had positioned himself to Maria, a tactic designed to instill fear but also one that left him vulnerable if things turned physical. The urban environment provided many opportunities for distraction. Street performers were entertaining crowds just a few feet away while vendors called out their evening specials. The golden glow from nearby shop signs illuminated the scene like a stage set for an impending showdown. Jenkins remained poised at the ready. Every moment mattered as he studied both Maria's courage and Carlos's growing frustration at her resistance. She was standing her ground effectively, but one wrong move from either of them could lead to disaster. As Carlos's words grew sharper, aiming to cut deeper into Maria's confidence, Jenkins decided it was time to prepare for intervention. Watching her resolve only strengthened his commitment. It became clear that this confrontation was pivotal, not just for Maria but for asserting collective rights against harassment on these streets. An adrenaline rush began coursing through him as he took slow steps forward from his concealed spot, heart pounding with urgency while emphasizing caution so as not to alarm either party too soon. His mission lay before him, safeguarding someone who refused to be silenced or intimidated by malevolence, an embodiment of bravery standing firm against shadows lurking within vibrant city streets. Jenkins felt a sense of duty surge within him, a call not only as an officer but as a protector ready and waiting for just the right moment to shield courage from chaos. As the confrontation unfolded, Carlos sensed that his attempts to intimidate Maria were starting to falter, but he wasn't about to back down easily. The cruel grin on his face widened as he stepped even closer, encroaching on her personal space with a predatory eagerness. The people moving past them seemed oblivious, wrapped up in their conversations and laughter, while the world around Maria dimmed into an oppressive quiet, punctuated only by Carlos's menacing words. "You really think you can just walk away from me?" Carlos slurred out, his voice dripping with malice. "You should know better than to strut through these streets alone." He leaned in, reducing the distance until she could smell his cologne mixed with sweat. An uncomfortable reminder of the threat before her IT was an assertion of power designed to shake her resolve. An attempt to remind her of her vulnerability. Maria's heart raced, but she maintained her ground, refusing to flinch. She clenched her fists tightly at her sides, willing the adrenaline coursing through her veins to fuel her bravery. A weight settled over her shoulders, yet something deep inside her rebelled against it. Her instincts were warning her not to show weakness. "Leave me alone," she said firmly, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty that lurked beneath her bravery. The words bounced off him like stones against armor. He hadn't come this far only to let someone like her scare him away. Meanwhile, Jenkins watched intently from his concealed location, feeling that tense knot in his stomach tighten further as Carlos stepped closer. Every part of his training urged him to jump in. He sensed trouble brewing beneath the surface as he shifted slightly to adjust his stance. He ensured that he was still hidden behind the food stalls while maintaining a clear view of both Maria and Carlos. With each passing second, the dynamic began to shift. Carlos leaned back on his heels slightly, clearly frustrated by Maria's resilience. This only stoked the fire inside him further. "You think you're tough? You think your little act impresses anyone? People like me don't get scared off so easily," he taunted, his voice raising with each syllable as it reverberated through the night air. The glaring streetlights seemed to catch the determination set upon Maria's face, brightening the contours of her features as if highlighting her stubborn courage amid looming shadows. Meanwhile, Jenkins noticed how Carlos's fists clenched tighter, revealing just how agitated he was becoming. This would soon dissolve into something more dangerous if left unchecked. "Why don't you come with me? I could show you just how dangerous it is out here," Carlos added with a sneer, forcing a laugh that felt hollow and cruel. Most people would have gone silent at those words, succumbing to fear. But for Maria, it ignited a fighting spirit deep within her in that moment of danger escalating around them. She couldn't help but think of every woman who had shared their stories with her, women who had faced intimidating figures like Carlos but had learned to reclaim their power. Every whisper, an anecdote became fuel for Maria's strength as she met his gaze without wavering. Off to the side, Jenkins prepared himself for action meticulously. Recognizing all too well what could happen next if Carlos decided to act on his threats, sweat gathered at his brow as he calculated his timing that he needed this moment right. If he intervened too soon or too late, it could mean the difference between safety or harm for Maria. The street continued its ongoing chaos around them. A laugh here, a shout there, while two dynamic forces faced off. One fueled by fear tactics and dominance and the other by resilience and courage. The void between them cracked like thunder after lightning. A storm ready to break unless someone stepped in soon before all erupted under the shimmering city's glow across precarious paths yet traveled. The moment hung thick in the air, a silent standoff between defiance and intimidation. As Carlos leaned closer, a self-satisfied grin painted across his face. Maria felt a shift inside her. It was as if every story she had heard, the tales of women standing against harassment, reclaiming their power, danced in her mind, igniting a spark of courage she didn't know was there. She took a deep breath, grounding herself as the world around them faded away. The laughter from nearby diners and the bustling vendors blurred into a dull roar. Maria's focus narrowed solely on Carlos and the path ahead of her. "You don't have the right to talk to me like that," she said boldly, feeling the weight of each word as it rolled off her tongue. Carlos's expression faltered for just a split second. A flicker of confusion that only fueled Maria's resolve to confront him directly. She refused to be another statistic or a whisper among the countless stories he and others like him thrived on. He might have sought to intimidate her, but now he stood before an unwavering spirit refusing to succumb to fear. "Who do you think you are?" Carlos sneered, attempting to regain control of the situation. But Maria sensed that he was losing ground. "You're out here asking for trouble." "No," Maria shot back, her voice firm and steady. "I'm just trying to walk home like anyone else. You're the one creating trouble." Each statement fought back against his taunts with undeniable clarity. This declaration seemed to catch him off guard. There were no threats of violence or sign of power issuing forth from Maria, just simple truth wrapped in raw determination. She felt powerful, as if an invisible barrier had risen between her and anxiety, fortifying her stance while disrupting Carlos's pursuit of dominance. Just beyond where they stood, Jenkins observed intently from his concealed location behind the food stalls, heart pounding in sync with Maria's rising courage. He could see how much this confrontation meant for her. A pivotal moment in which she owned her space rather than letting it be stolen away by fear. The tension vibrated through the air around them, coaxing Jenkins into taking action when needed most. "People like you don't scare me," Maria declared loudly enough for nearby passers-by to catch wind of it. A brave act meant not only for Carlos but for everyone who had ever felt threatened on these streets. It sent ripples through those who could hear her words. Some heads turned while others paused briefly in their conversations, as if acknowledging this brave woman standing up for herself. Carlos stepped back slightly, visibly rattled by Maria's boldness, even as he attempted to maintain his intimidating posture. His bravado dimmed under the glare of her unwavering gaze, leading him to lash out again with bitter frustration instead of responding with further aggression. "You think you can just walk away? You don't get to decide that." He spat, but there was something desperate in his tone now, a recognition that perhaps he hadn't thought this encounter would unfold quite like this. "I do decide," she answered bluntly, signaling for the first time that she would not allow herself to be controlled by him or anyone else. In that moment, confidence surged through her veins as though strong currents were uniting into one powerful current leading straight into open waters ahead. At that critical juncture under those relentless streetlights blazing overhead during their confrontation, the world around them began swirling anew. Laughter returned from vendors moving quickly past, unaware but sensing change brewing through angry tensions, lifting as strength blossomed brightly within, radiating hope amid conflict ahead. And with each heartbeat echoing through time's ticking hands preparing to reshape destinies on streets reclaimed, Maria proclaimed softly yet resolutely, "This is my right, and I'll fight for it." In so doing, she boldly transformed what should have been an evening clouded with fear into a demonstration shining brightly within darkness, determinedly taking control. The air crackled with tension as Carlos's arrogance began to falter against Maria's unwavering defiance. He took a step forward, ready to unleash his anger, his fists clenched and bearing animosity that could turn violent at any moment. Maria stood firm, her expression reflecting a mixture of strength and resolve that only fueled Carlos's frustration. With every passing second, it seemed inevitable that the confrontation would escalate into something far more dangerous. Just then, as Carlos moved in closer, Jenkins felt a rush of adrenaline course through him. The moment for intervention had arrived. He could no longer remain a passive observer. In one swift movement, he stepped out from behind the food stall, his body language shifting from concealed protector to active enforcer. "Hey, back off!" Jenkins called out assertively, his voice slicing through the tension like a knife. The command was loud enough to echo down the street but firm enough to hold authority. For a split second, both Maria and Carlos turned towards him in surprise. Maria had not seen Jenkins before. She caught sight of his badge and plain clothing as he approached quickly but cautiously. Relief washed over her like cool water on a hot summer day. She hadn't expected assistance, yet here it was in the form of an officer. Standing up against harassment right before her eyes, Carlos's demeanor instantly shifted from confident aggressor to cautious aggressor. "Who are you?" he demanded indignantly, narrowing his eyes at Jenkins as if sizing up a new opponent who dared encroach on his territory. "I'm Officer Jenkins," he replied without hesitation, keeping his gaze locked on Carlos as he stepped slightly in front of Maria, asserting that this was no longer just her battle alone. "And I suggest you leave this woman alone." There was no bluff in Jenkins's tone. It resonated with practiced authority. The bustling world around them continued its pace. A street vendor called out for customers nearby while children played distractedly. But within their small circle of confrontation lay brewing storm clouds threatening to erupt or dissipate based on what happened next. Carlos squared his shoulders, clearly taken aback by the sudden appearance of an officer but unwilling to submit to intimidation so easily. "I wasn't doing anything wrong," he protested weakly. Though even Maria could see the uncertainty creeping into his voice. It lacked conviction and felt almost desperate. You were harassing her, Jenkins clarified sharply, pointing directly at him as if marking boundaries that should never be crossed. You have no right to threaten anyone on these streets. It was crucial for him that Carlos understood this was not just about authority. It was about respect and safety for everyone walking those busy streets. Maria took a breath once more, feeling slightly buoyed by Jenkins' intervention. She sensed how intimidating disruptions began losing their power with unified voices standing against them together. A woman who asserted her right alongside an officer unafraid to protect that assertion. As tension shifted between them all in those moments, the crowd sensed changes rippling beneath what had once been heavy. As laughter finally returned where fear had previously settled upon shadows thickening under flickering lights overhead during this critical standoff now transformed bright beneath protective rays. Leave now, Jenkins ordered firmly while taking another step towards Carlos, to reinforce that stepping back might just save him from greater consequences should things escalate further toward violence rather than resolution guided through pure confrontation alone, with one last glare directed at Maria mixed with utter disbelief written across his features. Carlos sighed deeply, then reluctantly backed away slowly step by step before finally turning on his heel. Defeated by the courage displayed collectively right there, lighting paths forward brighter than before, looming shadows casting doubts behind. As they watched him disappear into the chaos around them, underwreathed by shared duty instead binding newfound strength felt deep among ordinary courageous souls rediscovering safety again, bravely shining brightly amidst lingering fear lifted. The street reclaimed under warmth, radiating hope after victory won, united attentively amidst shifting tides of tension, now calmed gently onward forward eternally ahead. As Carlos took a step back, his bravado visibly shaken by Jenkins's authoritative presence, the atmosphere began to shift. Jenkins stood firmly between Maria and Carlos, exuding calm authority that reassured Maria while simultaneously challenging the cartel member's aggression. With a steady voice, he addressed Carlos directly. You need to leave now. Harassing women in this neighborhood is unacceptable, and I won't allow it. Carlos blinked, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, and struggling to regain his composure, he glanced back at Maria, who remained steadfast, her expression fierce with determination. The defiance she displayed earlier seemed to resonate with Jenkins's stance, creating a unified front that made it clear he would not tolerate any further intimidation. I wasn't doing anything wrong, Carlos attempted to protest weakly, but Jenkins cut him off before he could elaborate. Harassment is wrong, Jenkins replied sharply, ensuring there was no ambiguity in his words. You've crossed the line tonight. His focus remained unwavering as he maintained eye contact with Carlos. Thus far, the officer had commanded respect without raising his voice, a tactic that seemed to surprise both Maria and Carlos alike. Around them, the ambience of the streets slowly returned. The laughter of children playing nearby and chatter from families resumed as people sensed the tension easing. They had witnessed the exchange and the standoff that unfolded before them. The crowd was no longer oblivious. Murmurs rippled through passers-by, many casting curious glances toward this confrontation. Jenkins continued, You're going to walk away from here without any further trouble, or I will have to take you in. The threat was subtle yet powerful, as if he were wielding an invisible sword of justice. In that moment, it was clear that Jenkins was not just acting as an officer of the law but as a protector standing up for what was right. Carlos's demeanor shifted again. Frustration crept into his voice but was laced with trepidation. I'm not afraid of you, he spat, though there was less conviction behind it now. Maria could see the muscles in his jaw tighten, indicating that his arrogance was beginning to crumble under pressure. You should be, Jenkins replied coolly, taking one deliberate step closer to emphasize his authority. This isn't just about your threats, it's about respecting others on these streets. You have a choice. Leave peacefully or face the consequences. Each word dripped with conviction, punctuating the point that aggression had no place here. For a heartbeat, everything felt suspended in time as Carlos weighed his options. The weight of his own bravado began to dissipate like smoke caught in an updraft. Maria could see it written across his face, the realization that he was outmatched not only by Jenkins's authority but also by Maria's unyielding spirit. Fine, he finally grumbled, stepping back with hesitance and glaring at Maria one last time, before turning away in defeat. The moment felt triumphant for both her and Jenkins. They had faced down intimidation together and emerged victorious as Carlos retreated into the distance. Maria exhaled sharply, relief washing over her like a wave. Jenkins turned to her, his expression softening. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I am now," Maria replied, gratitude shining in her eyes as she recognized the importance of having someone stand by her side during such a critical moment. With renewed determination swelling within her chest, she felt empowered knowing she had asserted her right to walk freely without fear. The streetlights shimmered above them like beacons of safety as laughter resumed, filling the space with warmth once more. Together they stood amidst a community reaffirmed by courage, where both officer and civilian created unity against darkness lurking beneath urban lights, ready to protect those who dared reclaim their power without fear. As Carlos turned and walked away, Maria felt a surge of relief wash over her, but beneath that relief lay an exhilarating sense of empowerment. She glanced at Officer Jenkins, who stood beside her with a calm demeanor, and a wave of gratitude enveloped her. The fear and anxiety that had gripped her mere moments ago faded, replaced by a newfound understanding of her own strength. "What you did back there, thank you," Maria said, meeting Jenkins's gaze. The flush of adrenaline still coursed through her veins, igniting fire in her spirit as she reflected on the confrontation. "I didn't expect anyone to stand up for me like that." Jenkins nodded, his expression warm yet professional. "You showed impressive courage yourself. That it's vital for people to stand up against harassment and to assert their rights." His words affirmed everything Maria had fought for in that moment. Her right to walk peacefully through the streets without fear of intimidation or violence. A smile crept onto Maria's face, mingled with embarrassment and pride in equal parts. She had always been independent and capable, yet there was something transformative about being validated in such a crucial moment. Standing up to Carlos had felt like reclaiming territory she thought might be permanently lost to oppressive behavior. As she resumed walking down the street toward home, every step felt lighter. The bustling sounds of the city, laughter from children playing nearby, the sizzling of street food, is shifted from background noise to reaffirming music echoing in support of her victory over fear. She glanced around at the people moving about their lives, knowing she was not just another shadow slipping between them. She had made her presence known. Maria's mind danced with thoughts of all the women who had come before her. The countless stories told in whispers among friends sharing coffee or laughter during casual gatherings. They were tales filled with bravery and resilience. Women who, against various odds, took their power back and learned how to confront the shadows lurking around them. Those stories resided within her now, giving voice to courage as she stepped deeper into her night. Officer Jenkins walked alongside her briefly before he paused at the sidewalk's edge where they began to part ways. "If you ever feel threatened again or see someone else struggling with harassment, don't hesitate to call for help," he instructed calmly while maintaining eye contact. Not just as an authority figure, but as a supportive ally in protecting safety within their community. "Of course," Maria replied earnestly, noticing how his offer resonated deep within. She wasn't just an individual fighting alone but part of a larger network, ready to come together against intimidation and fear on those busy streets. As they continued their separate paths under the glow of streetlights illuminating vibrant hues of unity, returning after darkness threatened encroachment moments before, Maria felt grateful not just for Jenkins's intervention but for the opportunity this experience brought. It taught lessons that emboldened personal agency, recurring numerous times ahead amid further struggles faced along life's journey ahead. Each step echoed possibilities drowned out by past fears, transformed into affirmations guiding her forward without belief in limitations. In that moment, beneath roars of urban cries cascading into spring night shared without hesitation, lifted spirits embracing possibility unshackled. That night became more than one merely walking home. It transcended into making reclamation possible, overcoming adversity, tipping into blossoming awakening, finally roaring truth, fighting against silence, woven starlight guiding hopeful hearts, restored underneath bright futuristic avenues, kept alive, showing how shadows could be washed away, returning light, cascading onto chaotic trails where safety and courage emerged, continually thriving ahead. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Maria felt a profound shift within her, one that painted her experience in vibrant colors of empowerment and resilience. And no longer just an anonymous figure walking through the streets. She had become part of a shared narrative, a community bound together by the collective struggle against harassment and the commitment to safety. This realization further solidified her belief that unity in the face of intimidation was essential for creating a supportive environment where everyone could walk freely without fear. As she continued home, Maria reflected on how critical it was for individuals to stand up against harassment, not only for themselves but for others in their community. She thought about the many women who had come before her, those whose stories of courage inspired her to confront Carlos boldly. Each stood as a reminder of the strength that can emerge when people refuse to accept mistreatment and seek to protect one another. The power of solidarity became evident. The idea that no one had to face their fears alone. Maria's encounter with Jenkins reinforced this sense of community support. His intervention exemplified that there were allies in unexpected places. People who were willing to step in and act when they witnessed injustice. It drove home the importance of looking out for each other. Just as she had found strength within herself that night, Jenkins had also chosen to use his authority to advocate for what was right. Together, they forged a moment of unity that challenged Carlos's aggression and reclaimed power over their shared space. Feeling motivated by her experience, Maria began to think about ways she could contribute to fostering safety within her neighborhood. Perhaps it was time to join or create local initiatives aimed at addressing harassment and empowering others. She envisioned workshops where women could share their stories and strategies for standing up against unwanted behavior, a platform where they could draw from collective wisdom and build stronger defenses against intimidation. The streetlights glowed above her, illuminating not only her path but symbolizing hope for greater awareness within the community. People walking beside her seemed more connected now. Laughter floated through the air as families gathered at nearby park benches and children played without care. The normalcy they were enjoying became a backdrop for reaffirming safety, the kind of environment that everyone deserved. Maria realized that building a culture rooted in protection required continuous effort from all members of society. It wasn't enough for people to witness harassment without taking action. They needed to feel empowered to intervene, just as Jenkins had done. The ripple effect of one person standing up could inspire others to do the same, transforming fear into agency until it became a tapestry woven throughout their community's strength. She knew there would be obstacles ahead. Harassment wouldn't disappear overnight. But with each small act of resistance, every voice speaking out against wrongdoing, they would chip away at the normalization of intimidation. Each conversation about safety was a seed planted in fertile ground. Over time, it could blossom into a movement demanding respect across all walks of life. As Maria approached her home, she felt exhilarated by the possibilities that lay ahead. The night air was filled with renewed energy, the sense that they were on the brink of change, fueled by courage and compassion shared among neighbors ready to rise together, with empowerment blossoming within her heart like fireflies lighting up darkened skies ahead. She resolved never to lose sight of the importance of standing up against harassment, while fostering support among those around her so all could thrive safely onward. In a world where fear often silences voices, Maria's experience served as a powerful reminder of the strength found in resilience and solidarity. Walking home that night, she not only reclaimed her right to safety but also reaffirmed the importance of supporting one another in difficult situations. The encounter had been daunting, but through her determination and the timely intervention of Officer Jenkins, she recognized that when people come together to stand against harassment, they forge a stronger community. Together, Maria and Jenkins illustrated the profound impact that allies can have in confronting acts of intimidation. His ability to step in at the right moment not only defused the immediate threat posed by Carlos, but showcased the responsibility we all share to protect those around us. And doing so, Jenkins exemplified that standing up against wrongdoing isn't only about authority. It reflects the values of compassion, responsibility, and unwavering support for one another. As Maria reflected on her journey home that night, she envisioned a community where everyone felt empowered to speak out against injustice, where people could walk freely without fear of harassment. This vision didn't just spring from her moment of victory. It drew on the resilience ingrained in countless women who had faced their own battles against oppression and harassment. They were stories woven into a tapestry of courage, reminding Maria that she was never alone. Safety in society is intricately tied to community engagement and individual empowerment. It becomes clear that fighting against harassment is not merely the responsibility of those directly affected but falls on every member of society. Each act of courage, be it standing up against intimidation or intervening to support someone in need, contributes to breaking down barriers built by fear. It fosters an environment where respect thrives and vulnerability transforms into strength. I am thinking about how she could give back. Maria was committed not only to advocating for herself but also for others. She considered how initiatives like community workshops could provide platforms for sharing experiences, learning self-defense techniques, or discussing strategies for confronting harassment. Building spaces where individuals feel safe to share their stories enhances collective memory and motivates communities to act united against threats. Moreover, Maria was aware that progress doesn't happen overnight. Just as fear can quietly creep into daily life, dismantling the normalization of harassment requires consistent effort and vigilance from everyone involved. Conversations on safety should be continuous, supported by policy advocating for public awareness and championing respectful interactions between community members. Ultimately, Maria embraced her mission with excitement and hope, with every step she took reinforced by an unwavering belief that their streets could be transformed into places where respect flourishes and fear diminishes. She envisioned plans shared broadly within her neighborhood, creating chains of support within families and groups ready to act. Collectively, when facing adversity lurking in shadows, with newfound clarity lighting her way home, illuminated by streetlights glowing above like guardians marking paths ahead, Maria resolved never just to reclaim her space but also work tirelessly alongside her neighbors, fostering awareness amid past burdens, tracing them forward toward bright futures. Together they would thrive, each account serving as chapters weaving deeper connections built upon resilience shared amidst shifting tides of unity, profoundly empowering all involved.